Okay, pencils now go down, colored pens come up. Good morning, everybody. Let's see how we're doing with a concept from a couple of lessons ago, intercepts. Let's start with part A. You were asked to do two things, find the intercepts and then graph. Let's start with the intercepts. I would like to know what they are. Let's see what kind of confidence we have today. So, what'd you get for the intercepts? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a fair amount of confidence. We'll start with Kaylee, Yasmin, Jesse, and then Gary. What'd you get?
X equals 31.
Okay. Okay, so you agree with her. Okay, so you slightly disagree because one of yours was different than theirs. Gary?
I say X is 32 and Y is 50.
Okay, so they actually come out to exactly 31.25 and the y-intercept is 50. If you put 31 1/4, that would be perfectly okay as well. 0.25 and 1/4 are the same thing. Unfortunately, when you're talking about intercepts, if I'm asking for something specific, you need to give me the specific answer. If you rounded to 31, you can go ahead and mark your answer correct, but don't round next time. Don't do it again. Okay? Rounding when you talk about intercepts is not appropriate because we're trying to draw a very specific graph. Okay? So now the graph itself, not really lending itself to volunteers, that is what your graph should have been. So I gave you the exact grid. You had to copy this grid into your notebook. This is a little bit of an estimation because we are going by tens. It's hard to know exactly where 31.25 is, but it should be pretty close to a little bit beyond 30. But the 50 was exact, and then of course you draw a line between. So now, what about part B? This was an interpretation question. If you work for 30 hours washing windows, how many hours do you have to mow lawns? So we've got David, Cheyenne, Michael, and then Alex. David. Okay. Okay. We got massive difference. Go ahead, Alex. So you agree with Michael, but I got two other answers, Amir and then Yadesh. What'd you get, Amir? 2, okay. So I got 3 people who say 12.5, but then I got a bunch of other answers on the board. Anyone else want to chime in with their answer, to agree with somebody or disagree? Amani, and then Paige, and then Amari. What'd you get? 2 hours? 12.5? Okay. So it actually comes out to 12.5 hours. However, I would accept 13 if you put 13. So, let's talk about how. Let's talk about how. Give me a thumbs up if you put 12.5 or 13. Okay? Well, should be at least, yeah, okay, good. So, Kayla, what did you put, 12.5 or 13? I'm sorry? Oh, okay. So how'd you get the 12.5?
I solved it.
How'd you do that?
Substitute the y for value.
Very good. So the value that they gave us was 30, and you plug that into this equation right here, and then solved it. Okay, so it was like this, 16x plus 10 times 30 equals 500. And now solve that equation, and when you solved it, you got exactly what? You get exactly 12.5. And then you decided to round to 13? What was your thinking there?
You can't really know half of some.
Well, it's not the... You're right. You've got a good argument, but it's not the lawn, it's the hours. Okay, but you make a valid argument, and Garion actually brought it up with me as well. The question is he allowed to work part of an hour? And so you decided to put what?
13.
You decided that it made more sense to you that he would have to work the full hour. And that's reasonable. Some people will say that they can work part of an hour and earn part of the salary. Some people would say you can't. It's kind of situational. It depends. So I will accept, of course, both answers. So this was a great approach. There was another approach. Did anyone take a different approach to finding 12 and a half, 13? Yudesh? Okay. Okay, interesting. So you figured out what was the amount that was washing windows? Oh, okay. So you knew this right off the top of your head was going to be $300, and there had to be $200 left because he's trying to make $500 total. Great approach. Anyone use a different approach? Really, I'm shocked. There was a very simple way to find the answer. You see it now? Amir, what was your approach?
Oh, I got it wrong, but I know I didn't, I was being lazy. I never did this right. See, what I did was,
Oh, I appreciate the honesty. Good.
I took 16 and I multiplied it by 30, and I got 480. And I was like, oh, well, there's not much left, so it's 2.
Right, but so do you know what mistake you made?
Yeah.
What was the mistake?
Not doing
I'm sorry?
Not doing any work.
No, you did work. You don't know what your mistake is? Can someone tell him what his mistake was? Because he made a mistake that some other people made. Yes. Say it again a little bit louder. You put the 30 in the wrong place. So you have to pay attention to details. Algebra is all about the details. The 30 is the y. You put it in place of x. Yeah, if you put it in place of x, you get 2. But you put it in the wrong place and you just got fired from your job because you didn't know what you were supposed to be doing. Okay, so I appreciate your honesty, and you did do work, but you made a mistake. There was another simple approach, and you guys seem to be missing it. And it's this big thing right here. So I would like everyone to now look here, and I want you to think about where do we get 12 and a half, 13? Give me a thumbs up when you see it. It's okay if you don't see it, but I think you should be able to. Of course, if you're not looking up here and trying, then you're not doing your job, so that's another issue. Okay, 2 people see it? Okay, put your thumbs down. I'll give you a little bit of guidance. It says that if you work 30 hours washing windows, so here's 30 hours washing windows. Give me a thumbs up when you see it. A couple more people see it. 3 more people see it. Okay, 4 more people see it. Okay, so put your thumbs down. So what you're missing is the fact that every point along this line represents a combination of hours washing windows and hours mowing lawns. Each ordered pair represents a combination. And so if he works 30 hours, watch this. Go over here, and now go down. Right there. That's the connection. That's the whole point of the graph. Is if you go from here to there, you can find the different values based on one decision. What if he decided to work 40 hours washing windows? Would you have to solve the equation? Go to 40, go across, and then go down. Approximately how many hours would he have to mow lawns if he washed windows for 40 hours? Mari? 8, 7. It's an estimate, but it's right there. So you can clearly see that the graph has huge benefits. You can quickly pick out pieces of information by just paying attention. That's the whole point of it. So it's okay that you didn't see it today, but you need to start developing this ability to interpret graphs. We're going to be graphing the entire year. So it's a critical piece in this class that you're taking. Okay? Any comments, questions on anything we did in the warm-up? Okay? So last class, we developed the idea of slope. First, we talked about rate of change. And then we built to the idea that slope is when the rate of change is constant. When the rate of change is the same over and over and over again, then we have slope. And remember that slope refers to steepness. There is also a formula that we can use to calculate slope. You've actually already been doing it. You did it all last time we had class. So you're going to see a lot of similarities. You should be able to make connections between today and last time naturally. If you don't, it doesn't make you a bad person, but it means that you need to kick your brain into super high gear. So, some of this you've seen already. So I want to emphasize a few things. First of all, this right here, you already saw last time. We talked about this right here being rate of change. The change in the y's over the change in the x's. We also talked about slope being rise over run. So now I'm adding one detail to this. And the one detail is the m. And from now on, slope will be referred to as m. I do not have a good explanation as to why the letter m is used. So you're just going to have to trust me that from now on, we use the letter m. So now, I don't want you to write the next part down yet. I just want you up here with me. So now we look here. Change in y over change in x. And so what is really happening is this right here. When you say change in y, you're talking about, Amir, the distance between the y values. We're talking about a distance right here. And we can represent that distance, just like we talked about last time. You take the newer value and subtract the older value, and that gives you the change in the y's. The same thing is happening with the x's. The x's, we have x1, x2. They're part of the ordered pair, but what really is happening is we're talking about a distance right here. And the distance, or the change, can be found by taking the newer x and subtracting the older one. And so when we take these two bits of information and put them in here, we end up with this right here. I still don't want you to write it down. I just want you to look. There's a reason, and you'll see in a moment. So when I say that I'm introducing the slope formula, that is the formula. But still don't write it down. We're going to write it down in a moment. This is where it comes from. Okay? Any questions? Good. We're going to use it a whole bunch. You're going to become an expert by the end of the day. Now let's shift a little bit to something that I realize now maybe I should have done last time. Don't write anything down. Look. There are 4 possible slopes. And you should be able to look at a line, at a graph, and instantly know one of 4 things. You should instantly be able to tell whether or not the slope is positive, negative, 0, or undefined. 0 and undefined we talked about last time. Give me a thumbs up if you remember my skiing guy. Remember the skiing guy? Remember that 0 slope means it's the bunny slope. It's very gentle sloping. It's nice and easy. It's 0 slope. And really the only way to make yourself go is by using the poles to push. And what was the problem with this little ski mountain? What's the problem there, Cheyenne?
You're gonna fall. Like there's no slope. So if you try to think, it's gonna
That's right. You're going to plummet to your doom. So we don't give it a number. It's not slope anymore, it's doom. And so we call that undefined because doom is kind of an unfriendly word. So we give it a fancy math word, it's undefined. In other words, no one would ever ski that mountain. Okay? So we took care of these. It might have been a good idea last time, but that's okay, to address the idea of positive and negative. And it's quite simple. If the line is angling up and to the right, if it rises up and to the right, it's positive. If it falls from the left to the right, then it's called negative slope. And so it can be a whole bunch of different possibilities. It could be that's positive, that's positive, that's positive, that's positive, that's positive. Anything like this is going to be positive, that's negative. This would be 0. So you see it's positive, 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 0, negative, 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 negative. Okay? And so that's what's going on with the different slopes. I expect my students who are all going to get level 5s, you should be able to look at a graph and instantly know, because that piece of information helps you. You'll understand why in a few minutes. Okay? Any questions about classifying a line? Okay? Good. So now, let's go back to the formula. Now you can copy it down. Because we have to talk about a couple of things. First of all, this is not an exponent. That is called a subscript. It is not an exponent. So do not, under any circumstances, write this. That's y squared. That's something totally different. This that we're using is called y sub 2. I will just say y2. And you will say y2. But it's really y subscript 2 minus y subscript 1. Why do we need a subscript? It's part of its name. Think of it like a last name. What if there was 2 students in my room who were named Chris? And I was calling out names for your grade, and I yell out, Chris, what happens? They both turn, right? So how do you distinguish between Chris and Chris? They have last names. So these are both Y's. These are both Y's. So they both have the same name, but I need to know the difference between them because they're actually not the same value. They're in different locations. And so we give them a last name. And so instead of a name, we just give it a number. So I could say Chris 1 and Chris 2, and so I'm saying Y2, Y1. So here's what you should be able to do off the top of your head, I'd say within a day or two. You should be able to say m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It should be that effortless, that the slope formula is so ingrained in your brain that it's that effortless. Because you're going to be using it over and over and over again, and not only that, you're going to use it next year in geometry as well, and you need to know it like it's no big deal. Okay? Any questions? Good. So now you should have it written down. Now we can use it. So, example 1, we're going to start calculating slopes by using the formula. You do not have to write the instructions, but you need to read the instructions because you're going to see the same types of instructions over and over again. Find the slope of the line passing through the points. In other words, If we were to draw a graph, we could, don't do this, but I could draw a graph right now. 1, 2, put a dot, -2, -3, put a dot, draw a line through it, and then do a slopes triangle and find the slope. We could do that if we wanted to, but we don't have to. We can find this piece of information without the picture, because now we have the slope formula. Any questions about that? So now, to help ourselves remember the formula, you're going to be asked to write it 3 times initially, and then you don't have to write it anymore. So we're going to start out by writing m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If you put a y where an x is, and if you put a number in the wrong place, then it will be wrong. Now, the last part is the most important. I'm going to give you a training wheels technique, but this is a training wheels technique that you're probably never going to take off. I have been teaching this for 15 years, 16 years, and I still do not take the training wheels off for this technique. Because you've got 4 numbers and you have to put them in the right place. So we are going to label the numbers by putting a little note above them. It takes 1 second to 2 seconds. So if you don't do it, that's the definition of laziness, and you're going to get things wrong. So that's a laziness and leading to failure. So here's what we do. That's an X, that's a Y, that's an X, that's a Y, so just label it. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. So basically we're saying this is the X and Y value of the first point, this is the X and Y value of the second point. Now plug the numbers in the right place. M equals Y2, find the Y2, minus Y1. It's a negative number, make sure you pay attention to that. Over X2 is a 1, minus X1 is a negative number. Make sure you pay attention to that. Now simplify. Go ahead, simplify. No calculators needed. You should do it mental math. There's absolutely no calculator should be used. Not for my students who are all going to get level 5s. No, absolutely not. So someone tell us, what does the top become? And if you make a mistake, it doesn't make you a bad person, but you have to learn from it. What do you get on top, Yasmin? And what do you get on bottom, Catalina? Good. You get 5 over 3. And that is the slope. And we actually want to leave it as an improper fraction, because remember that the top means rise and the bottom means run. That actually tells us something. If we change this to 1 2/3, we lose that information. So we do not want to do that when we talk about slope. When we talk about slope, we want to leave it in improper fraction form if it's an improper fraction. So we have found the slope, 5 over 3. Any questions about how we did that? So I'll be honest, this is what your homework's going to look like. Any questions? Good. You're in Algebra 1 Honors, which means we work hard. So let's take a look at this. The real world is full of unfriendly numbers that still have to be worked with. So we have the coordinates 3/4, 7/5, and the other coordinates 1/4, 2/5. What's the slope of the line going through those 2 points? We could draw a graph if we wanted to. I could use a computer program to draw a graph if I wanted to. But we can find the information doing a simple calculation. Again, you are going to write the formula down because we are trying to memorize it. And so try to write it down without looking. Try to write it down without looking back at your notes. If you can't, then look and write it down. And it will start to sink into your brain. But now we need to label, because otherwise we're going to get incredibly confused. So label x1, y1, x2, y2. And now plug in the information. So we're going to rewrite the formula, m equals, and now plug in the numbers. y2 is 2/5, so we put a 2/5 like that, minus y1 is 7/5, over x2 is 1/4, minus x1 is 3/4. Looks pretty ugly, but it's actually not that big a deal. Simplify the top, simplify the bottom. Do it yourself. What'd you get? Shouldn't take this long. What'd you get? On top, Michael, what'd you get? Say it again. Absolutely. 2/5 minus 7/5 is actually negative 5/5, which is -1. Beautiful job, Michael. What about the denominator? What comes out with that? David? -1/2, exactly. 1/4 minus 3/4 is -2/4. It ends up being -1/2. So our slope is -1 over -1/2, and that's very awkward. So we don't leave it like that. We need to make that look a little nicer. So first, let's address this. What happens when we have a negative over a negative? What does that really mean? Paige? That means it's positive. In actuality, this is really what happens. The whole thing is positive. So our slope is really going to be positive something. But how do we get rid of this fraction in the denominator? Got any ideas? Go ahead.
Use a decimal.
Okay, so that would be 1 over,
0.5.
okay, so you could say a slope is 1 over 0.5, but that's still a little bit awkward. Let's do a quick test. Now you may pick up your calculator. Everyone do the following. 1 divided by 0.5. Isn't that interesting? Comes out to 2. Michael? Yeah, it's 2 over 1. So in actuality, our slope is 2 over 1. We do not want slope to have a decimal if we can help it. You're going to end up in the real world with some unusual numbers, but we don't really want slope to be like that. This is what we're looking for right here. This is what we want. So if you look carefully, how did we get from here to here and here to here? Multiply by 2, multiply by 2. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. So that seems like an awful lot of work, but it really isn't. We just went slowly and methodically. It will get easier. And the good news is that's the hardest one you're going to do all day. So it gets easier from there. Any questions so far on calculating slope? Okay, so now I have to go back for a second because it says classify the line by its slope. So let's go back to part A. Is that positive, negative, 0, or undefined? Positive, negative, 0, or undefined? Only 3 people can tell me which one it is. Okay, let's do a survey. Give me a thumbs up if you think that's positive slope. Okay. Put your thumbs down. Give me a thumbs up if you think it's negative slope. Okay? Give me a thumbs up if you think it's 0. Give me a thumbs up if you think it's undefined. So I'm going to be honest with you, it should be an absolute joke for you to tell the difference. How could you tell it's positive? Amir? Say it again. Yeah, it's a positive number. It's a positive number, it's a positive slope. When will it be negative? When there's a negative slope. So of course, this is positive. Which means that if we did graph it, it would go up like that somehow. It might go like this, or it might go like that, but one way or another, it's going to be positive. What about this one right here? Positive, negative, 0, or undefined? What do you think, Amari? Positive? Rate your confidence. 10 being the most confident, 1 being not confident at all. 6? Okay, that's fair. Garian, is it positive, negative, 0, or undefined?
Positive.
Of course it's positive. It's a positive number. So your confidence should have been 10, and that was my point, is that you have nothing to worry about. Okay? So, any comments, questions on calculating slope? All right. Checkpoint number 1. Calculate the slope of these two and tell me whether it's positive, negative, 0, or undefined. You've got 2 to do. You've got 4 minutes. 2 minutes per. Okay, I'm sorry. So, all right, let's see how we did. So we're on part A only. When I call on you, you just tell me your answer for part A. Everyone take your index finger and place it on your answer for part A. All right, we got numbers 3, 8, 1, and 7. Number 3, what did you get? Number 3. Talking person number 3. Okay. Okay. Okay, number 1.
I got 0 over 2 and 0.
Okay, and number 7? Is no number 7? Okay, that's fine. So, it comes out to undefined, and 2 over 0 was what the slope comes out to. But as soon as you see that 0 in the denominator, that automatically means it's undefined. And we spent time on Monday talking about why, because a 0 in the denominator doesn't make any sense. Okay? And part B, we're now focused on part B. When I call on you, you tell me only your answer for part B. And we've got numbers 23. I'm sorry, number 4, number 17, and number 13. Number 4, what'd you get? I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
It's negative 11 over 1.
Okay, number 17. Okay, number 13. Okay, so we do have a little bit of a disagreement, and it comes out to 3 over 1, and it is positive. So technically I should put 3 over 1, but you could also write the slope as 3. But we need the 1 because remember this means rise, and this means run, and you need to know that there's a 1 there. Okay? Very good, and yes, it's positive. So if you put negative 11, it's because you messed up with computation, and I've talked to you about the word computation. So if you did that, you need to look back right now and find your mistake with the computation. Because now you know it was supposed to be 3, so figure out where you went wrong. Any comments or questions? Okay, so let's develop the idea by now looking at what happens when we're not just given points, but we're given the information in a slightly different way. So, you do not need to write out the text of the question, but you need the table of values. So this is actually no different than what we just did 4 times. It's just given to us in a different way. So we have to know how to read the table, and then we're fine. So we have a bunch of numbers. Some of them are x's and some of them are y's. How do we know the difference? Can someone tell us which are the x's and which are the y's? 2 people, 3 people can, 4 people can, 5 people. Okay, Chopin, which are the x's? Yeah, these are the x's right here. So 2, 6, 12 are x's, which means that the bottom row is the y's. So in essence, this is an ordered pair and could be written like this. I don't want you to write this, but I'm just showing you that even though it's written vertically, it represents an ordered pair. So to calculate slope from a table, you just have to pick 2 ordered pairs. So you can actually pick this one and this one. You could actually pick this one and this one. Or you could actually pick this one, and it won't make a difference. In fact, we're going to do a quick little experiment. So, I would like everyone who is on this side of the room, you have this table written down now, just everyone over here, I want you to label your table like this. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. I would like, so make sure you label it X1, Y1, X2, Y2. I would like everyone on this side of the room to label your table like this. And I am going to do it the third way. I'm going to do this one. So now, here's the thing. You don't have to write the formula down first anymore. But you have to know the formula. So, it's M equals, and now you have to know that it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If you don't know it, you better look before you write anything down. So I gave everybody a different set of numbers. So everyone go ahead and do it yourself, and we're going to come back together as a whole group. I'm doing my own up here, and I don't even know the answer. I haven't done it yet. So let's see what happens. Mine looks like this. So I need some volunteers from this side of the room because I don't know the answers. What did you guys get for your slopes? We'll go Gary, Yadesh, Amir. Gary, what'd you get?
I got 9 over 4.
9 over 4? 9 over 4? 9 over 4. Adriana, do you agree? Catalina, you got 9 over 4?
Yeah.
Everybody over here got 9 over 4. Okay, so I'm going to write that over here, that maybe the slope is 9 over 4. Let's see what this group got over here. What'd you get, Paige? 13.5 over 6. What'd you get? 2 over 1, okay. So what about Keisha, what'd you get? Kaylee? So we seem to have an agreement that over here we got 13.5 over 6. Okay? What did I get? I got 22.5 over 10. They all look different. Any way we could see if they're actually the same thing? Remember that 4 quarters and 10 dimes and 20 nickels all mean the same thing. Maybe these all mean the same thing. What can we do, Paige? So let's do that. Everyone pick up your calculator. Let's do 9 divided by 4. We had 2.25. 13.5 divided by 6. 2.25. And I can do mental math with this because dividing by 10 is easy. But just to show you, 22.5 divided by 10, 2.25. So they are actually all the same thing. The best way to write it is this right here. How do you get decimals to change into fractions? We'll talk more about that another time. Don't worry, most of your homework assignment are going to come out nice and friendly. So don't worry so much about seeing things like this. But now you know that they're actually all the same. And so we are able to find the slope no matter what. Anyone have any questions or comments about that? Any questions or comments? Okay, so I did have another one, but I think we get the idea that Really, the only difference between this and this is that instead of it being given to us as an ordered pair, it's given to us as an ordered pair. Give me a thumbs up if you can handle that difference. Okay, Keshope, still have some questions about it? Oh, okay. You can put your thumbs down. So let's see how you do on this. Checkpoint number 2, find the slope of the line. Part A, you got a table. Part B, you got a graph. You got 2 questions, but you should be better than you were before. You got 3 minutes. Let's see how we did, and let's see if I can make some people really uncomfortable. So we're on part A only, part A. Got number 1, number 7, and number 24. There's no number 24, so let me get number 15. Number 1, what did you get for part A?
I got -6 over 4.
Okay, and number 7, what did you get? What's that? Okay, number 8. Okay, well, the clock was going for 4 minutes. Should have raised your hand and asked for help if you're still struggling. Number 15, what'd you get? 3 over 2. So the slope is -3 over 2. Garen, you got the right slope, but what mistake did you make?
I didn't simplify.
Has to be simplified always. Always has to be in simplest form. So if you put -6/4, unfortunately, you can give yourself half right now, but on a test or a quiz, it will be marked wrong. Yes, Marcus? No, I said find the slope of the line. Okay, part B. What do we get as the slope? Let's see if we can make some people uncomfortable. All right, I got number 15, number 18, and number 12. Number 15, what'd you get? Okay, number 18. Okay, number 12. Okay, so we got a massive disagreement. The slope is -3/1 or -3. So some of you got massively confused here when there's really not a whole lot different. Not a whole lot of difference. So let's go back to part A. Could I have a volunteer tell me which two ordered pairs you used? Which two did you use? Jesse? The last two to the right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you used this one and this one? And were you able to get it right? Good job. Anyone use a different pair? Adriana?
I used the first one and the last one.
You used the first one and the last one, and did it work out for you?
Yeah.
Very good. So you use the first one and the last one, still get the same answer. So it shouldn't matter, no matter what. Now let's look at part B. How'd you get -3/1? How'd you do it? See, this is the interesting part because we didn't do any of these. Or did we? Dun, dun, dun. Kaylee?
I did the rise over run,
Yeah, rise over run, of course.
and then I said,
Yeah. You draw a slope triangle. So you just rise from here to here, run from here to here, and simplify. So you didn't even have to use what we learned today. You just had to know how to find rise over run. That's the same thing. So this was a rise of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, going up. And this was 1, 2 to the left, which means it's -2. Rise over run. 6 over -2. Simplify it, becomes that. If you wanted to use today's lesson, then you had the ordered pairs written for you right here, and then you could have done this. x1, y1, x2, y2. Now, Amir, you said that the slope was 0/0. Something should have told you that that was absolutely bonkers. Because what does 0/0 look like? Let's go way back to the beginning. What does 0 slope look like? It's a horizontal line, excuse me. 0 slope is a horizontal line like right here. So you should have known that you did something wrong. My students who are going to get a level 5 need to know things like that, and that's why you should easily be able to tell whether it's positive, negative, 0, or undefined. And so now watch this. The first thing you should have said to yourself for this question was you should have said, I know that that's negative. You should have been able to look at it and say, I know it's negative.
I would have got it right, but I think when I was looking at it, I couldn't see that part, so I thought the second one was -4, -2. That's what I mean, instead of 0, -2.
Okay, well that's fair, but again, you should have then looked at your answer and said, does my answer match what's given to me? Does my answer make sense? Because again, the students who are going to do this Level 5 have to be able to ask themselves, does my answer make sense? And if it doesn't, then you have to go back. Okay? All right, we had a real-world application that we were going to go over, but it was really the same idea, just looking at a graph in a real-world scenario. So it's not a big deal. I'm okay with skipping the example. The real-world application is the most important part, but it's the same thing that we just did. If you're given a graph of information, then you use that graph. There is one thing you need to pay attention to, though. If you want to do rise over run, like Kaylee suggested, and you want to do this, and this is going to affect you on your homework, so make sure you're watching. So you rise here and run here. Now count, right? You count. I went up. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's plus 4. And I went over to the right, 2. 1, 2. So rise 4 over 2. You get that wrong. Because look at the scale. It's not going by ones. So going from here to here is not 1. That's actually 3. And going from here to here is not 2. That's actually 6. So you have to pay attention to the scale that's given to you before you start counting. You have to pay attention to this. So now you count 3, 6, 9, 12. That's up 12. This is going by 1, so 1, 2. So now it's rise over run, 12 over 2. Yes?
If we went to the x1 and y1,
Absolutely.
would the top always be the x1 and y1?
Should that be the x1 and this be the x2? Why don't you try it both ways, see what happens? Yes, we don't have time. Okay, so draw a line across your paper. Your homework. Make sure you copy it clearly. It's on page 201, numbers 1 through 8. On page 202, you're doing numbers 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then in the old workbook, which I gave you the other day, you're doing 6 questions, 13 through 18, and those are critical questions. You will have a quiz. It will be, today is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And that will be 4-1 through 4-5.